forgot the other part. What the hell did I just say? What the
Yes, I think I'm falling in love. I think I'm falling in love.
Welcome to today's video, guys. As you can probably tell by the title of this video, it is all about IBS, my personal experience with it, and I'm going to cover a wide variety of topics regarding IBS. I know it's kind of like an awkward, like don't really want to talk about it subject, but honestly I feel like the gut and your gut health is so important, and a lot of people neglect it. A lot of people don't know what it is, and sometimes you might be suffering from it and not even realize it. So this has been a highly requested video. So here we are, and I am just going to jump right into it and get on with the very first thing, which is, what is IBS? IBS is irritable bowel syndrome, and there are, I believe, two types. I think there is IBS-D, which is irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea, and then there's just irritable bowel syndrome, I think. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. The definition of irritable bowel syndrome is an intestinal disorder causing pain in the stomach, accompanied by gas, diarrhea, constipation, and all awesome types of side effects and symptoms that we will get into. According to the medical articles that I have read to prepare this video for you guys, there really isn't a clear picture on like what it is or why some people get IBS, although there are certain factors that can contribute to it more. A lot of times IBS sufferers may have a more sensitive colon than others, and people with IBS, the brain may perceive contractions in the gut more acutely than others, and also the immune system may respond differently to stress and infection in people with IBS. And also hormonal changes may trigger IBS symptoms, and it says that 70% of those who suffer from IBS are women. The very first thing that I want to talk about are just some common symptoms of IBS. I don't really know too much about IBS-D, like other than the fact that that's mainly the only symptom of that, as opposed to regular IBS, which is kind of a random flare-up, which we'll talk about more. But for now, I just want to get into the basic symptoms of IBS, which are pain in your stomach. Obviously, for me personally, it feels like stabbing pain. And then the gastrointestinal side effects of it obviously are the very unpleasant changes in bowels, constipation, diarrhea, inability to empty bowels, indigestion, nausea, and passing excessive amounts of gas. So basically, if you have IBS, it is not just a stomach ache after you have Taco Bell, right? So IBS can pretty much come out of nowhere. In order to be considered like an IBS case, you should have symptoms for more than 6 months. So if you eat something and you're sick for 2 weeks, it's probably not IBS. If you have reoccurring gastrointestinal symptoms like the pain in the abdomen, bloating, gas, all kinds of things like that, you may be suffering from it. But a lot of times it could be a stomach allergy or intolerance as well. So it's a good thing to keep an eye on it as far as when you eat something. If you have immediate symptoms after that, like pain, bloating, you have to go to the bathroom right away, that type of thing, and just kind of keep like a journal, I guess you could say, so that you're aware of the certain things that trigger your stomach pain. So I asked on Instagram and Snapchat for you guys to submit questions about IBS, and the most frequently asked question that I got was, how did you know that you had IBS? As a kid, I always had a sensitive stomach. I couldn't eat dairy. It always made me really sick, and I just found that I was sensitive to a lot of things. So my mom, like when I was really young, my mom would take away things from me that I wasn't allowed to eat. So when we went to birthday parties, I wasn't allowed to eat the pizza or the cake, anything like that. So kind of just my whole life, I've had a sensitive stomach is what I've always called it. When people would ask me why I'm not eating at a restaurant, I would just say, oh, I have a sensitive stomach. I never knew that I had IBS until after this incident. So back in 2012, I kept having the same thing over and over again. And I guess, you know, I was just getting a little bit older and realizing like this is probably not just stomach sensitivity. I would have random flare-ups where my stomach just out of nowhere would blow up. Like it would literally look like I was 4 months pregnant. It would be so painful, so uncomfortable, couldn't eat. No matter how many Tums I took, it wouldn't work, wouldn't go away. So I eventually went to the doctor. He referred me to a gastro doctor, and they do a ton of tests, an endoscopy, blood work, all types of things, talking with him about my symptoms. There are some really gross part about getting tested for all types of things, because at this point, the doctor didn't know what it was that was wrong with me. This is really weird. I don't know if I want to go down this route, but I had to go to the bathroom and give it to the doctor. Like, what? I remember being so mortified, like, oh my God, I was so embarrassed. After having all those tests done, I actually had a bacterial infection in my stomach, which is called Helicobacter pylori or H. pylori, and it's actually really common. Some people develop it in their gut if they have a very weak gut. Digestive enzymes are not properly doing their jobs. Sometimes you can get it through food if you get food poisoning or if you cross-contaminate. There's a lot of ways that you could contract H. pylori, but nonetheless, I had it. Just to give you a bit more information, Helicobacter pylori is a bacteria and they can enter your body and live in your digestive tract. After years, they can cause ulcers in the lining of your stomach or the upper part of your small intestine, and for some people, the infection can even lead to stomach cancer. After H. pylori enters your body, it attacks the lining of your stomach, which usually protects you from the acid your body uses to digest food. Once the bacteria has done the damage, the acid can actually get through the lining, which will then lead to stomach ulcers. These can eventually bleed, causing infections or keep food from moving through your digestive tract. It is diagnosed through the blood and treated for 14 days on antibiotics, which is exactly what I had to do. I was treated with antibiotics for 14 days, which was a pain in the ass, by the way, literally. It was just a really unpleasant experience all the way around. What the doctor told me after treating the infection for 14 days was that it essentially had done that. It had damaged the lining of my stomach, which made it hard for me to digest certain things. And he wasn't sure if that was what translated into the IBS or if one caused the other, but I eventually got diagnosed with IBS as well, which I'm assuming he took from a combination of my blood work and then the symptoms. A lot of times when you go into a doctor's office and you complain of these symptoms, the doctors will first tell you to cut out like dairy or gluten and see if that's what it is. But since I had already not been eating dairy my entire life and I had this infection, that's how he came to the conclusion that it was in fact IBS. After that, you know, he told me to make a list of the foods that cause these flare-ups, and like I told you guys, that's something to watch for if you're not sure if you have IBS or some type of gut issue. And so trigger foods for me are things like raw carrots, uncooked red peppers and green peppers, pears, any whole milk dairy products, obviously, like I mentioned, and then high oil or fat content like pure butter and carbonated drinks. Those are the most common that I have experienced that will trigger a flare-up for me. And the other weird thing about IBS is that it doesn't necessarily have to come from a food. I find that after I've gone a long period of time without eating, for example, if I ate my last meal at 8 and I ended up staying up till 1 or 2 in the morning, I'll start to get those symptoms at 1 or 2. And that's pretty common as well when you have no food in your stomach, which I find interesting, but it's also annoying because then nothing really alleviates the symptoms because I don't have the desire to eat. Moving along and talking about alleviating symptoms, I have both over-the-counter things to recommend for you guys, as well as 2 prescriptions that I have been prescribed since being diagnosed with IBS. My purse is literally always filled with Tums, Pepto-Bismol, Gas X, the chewable Tums. I really like those little minty ones. Those are actually really good. Ginger pills or ginger gummies. I found that I like those a lot better. So the Tums and all of that is obviously an antacid and it will help with the gas and bloating in your stomach. It's not always a surefire fix though. I've had flare-ups where I've literally taken like 5 or 6 Tums and nothing happens, but it does alleviate the symptoms just a tad. So the ginger pills are actually what doctors recommend for pregnant women, and I found mine at CVS, just a generic ginger gummy, and it's supposed to help with nausea and pain in the stomach for pregnant women, but you can obviously use it if you're not pregnant. Sometimes when I eat something that doesn't really sit well with me, eating one of those immediately after will kind of help tone down the acid and the pain in my stomach. So those are the top over-the-counter things that I recommend. The first prescription that I was prescribed was Zofran, which is an anti-vomiting medication and anti-nausea. However, one of the side effects is constipation on it. So if you're suffering with IBS-D, sometimes the doctors will prescribe you Zofran in a case of an emergency where you're out and you have to go to the bathroom. So you take one of those and it will sure as hell constipate you. Again, not the most pleasant of symptoms, but sometimes when you're in an emergency emergency situation like that, they can be really helpful because they work almost immediately. And again, that is prescription, so you'll have to talk to your doctor if you want to get something like that. The second prescription that I was prescribed recently was Xifaxan. And Xifaxan is technically an antibiotic, but the way my doctor described it to me is that it is a reset of your gut. I didn't really find that it had too much of an effect on me. It was okay, but again, this is a case-by-case basis, and it may work for you, just like any antibiotic may have, you know, certain symptoms and side effects for different people. So the last thing that I want to talk about are just preventative measures that I take on a day-to-day basis to keep everything in check so I don't have to deal with a flare-up when I am out or about or something like that. And the very first thing is taking digestive enzymes. I mentioned in my supplement video that I take digestive enzymes with every single meal that I eat, and that has helped significantly. I dabbled a little bit with taking probiotics constantly, but my doctor told me that if you take too many of them, it can also have the adverse reaction that you want it to. So I just kind of cut those out of my diet completely and stuck with digestive enzymes only, and I found that I like the effects much better. The other thing too are the Kavita drinks. Although they are lightly carbonated, they don't really affect me too bad, but they are a probiotic drink, so it's not something that you would take every day, twice a day, and I like to drink those every now and then just to get some prebiotic and probiotic cultures every, you know, week or so. And then obviously avoiding the trigger foods. I'm not going to go out to eat and have ice cream or whole milk, cheese. Although I will say that skim cheese and skim milk doesn't affect me as bad as whole milk or whole cheese does for some reason, I don't know. Avoiding those trigger foods, and when I go out to restaurants, I am probably the biggest pain in the ass, which is why I avoid it pretty much all the time. If I go out to a restaurant, I have to pretty much lie to them and tell them I'm allergic to butter, so they don't put any type of butter on my food. If you've ever been to a restaurant, these people will put this much of a stick of butter in the pan and just let it melt and cook your meal in that, if that's the type of place you're going to, especially Italian. Anytime I go anywhere, I will tell them, do not touch my food with oil or butter, and no cheese or anything like that. So it kind of eliminates the purpose of going out to eat, which is why I personally just avoid it altogether. I have yet to go out to eat and had something that doesn't affect my stomach or digestive system in some way, shape, or form. So I just don't do it. A lot of people think that's extreme, but for me, it's not enjoyable. Like, going out to eat sucks. So I just don't do it. So that's pretty much all I can think about IBS. So that is where I'm going to end this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. I hope it was informative for you. If you have any other questions or comments or anything that you suggest, maybe you deal with IBS and you have something that you recommend, please leave them down below. I like reading your guys' suggestions and thoughts. And also please give the video a thumbs up so that other people who are searching for IBS can find this video and watch it and hopefully gain some knowledge from it. Maybe you will go to the doctor and get checked for IBS if you think you have it. It's not the end of the world. It can be dealt with, and you know, you just have to live a little bit more in the box. There's like pizza and ice cream and all kinds of fun stuff over here, and we're just here. But that's okay. That's the end of this video. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in my next one.